With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Three races in a row for that 77 car of Kenny Coppola. He has won the last three races, completely sweeping the round of 12. Kenny Coppola on an absolute tear at this point in the season with 4 races left. And here we are, kicking off the round of 8 at Talladega Superspeedway. This kid's got a broken freaking ankle, and he's still finding himself in victory lane. So very excited to see what goes down here at the 2.66-mile Superspeedway. 80 laps here on the docket for the Lugz Cup Series, and tonight's race brought to you by Secret Simulations. Be sure to check them out on Facebook. Big supporters here at Vidane TV of the Lugz Cup Series, as well as sim racing as a whole, and it's always cool to support those that support us. So be sure to go over onto Facebook, do a quick search for Secret Simulations, and they pop right up. Check out all the neat things that they've got going on over in their neck of the woods. Showtime, Paul Strickland Jr. joining you here on a Wednesday night, just off the heels of Tim's Corner Motorsports, Tim's Corner Live, episode number 45, where we had the Iron Man, Wayne Smith from Atlanta, Canada, on there. 2 hours of racing stories, and if you want to check that out, definitely go over to the Vidane TV YouTube page. Do a quick search. It pops right up, and it'll be the one that, just ended a couple of minutes ago. And lots of cool stuff going on there. Over 550 live races on demand at your fingertips. Be sure to check that out for sure. Showtime, Paul Strickland Jr. up here in the booth. Joined alongside for the very second time, Mr. Jeff Brown. Came into the booth last night at the NEPS race, the Oxford 250 qualifier, big event coming up here on Vidane TV next week, and had so much fun last night in the booth, decided to join us here tonight. How are we doing tonight, Jeff?
Not bad, much better. You know, last night I was worried I was going to actually be participating. I was glad to just be in the booth and not actually on the track for a number of reasons. So, we'll come back here, get on the mic, and call these guys home. We got 80 laps ahead, it looks like.
100%. Kenny Coppola sitting on the pole there in the number 77 with Ken Ellard on the outside. There you can see the starting lineup for tonight's Alabama 225 here at Talladega. Again, presented by Secret Simulations. And going through the field here, Jeff, I know you're not as familiar with these cats as everybody else is out there watching on the YouTube, on the Facebook, on the Twitch, on the Twitter. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe, follow, all that good social media stuff out there. But these guys run Cup teams, Cup paint schemes, and Cup drivers and Cup cars and things like that. So you'll see a lot of the Richard Childress Racing guys work together. The Hendrick Motorsports work together. Spire Motorsports, 77 of Coppola and the 7 of Chris Spear, those guys work together as well. And this is going to be one of those races here at Talladega where teammates and sometimes, what's that word that they made up for racing? Frenemies? You'll be able to work with your frenemies and your co-opetition throughout Talladega here. Big track, long race, lots of action coming up here in the next 2 hours.
Co-opetition's another one. I heard you drop that earlier, but that I want to say DW tried to coin that one, or at least he was one who's credited for it. But no, that's the name of the game of plate racing. Everybody's a teammate until the last lap, and even then sometimes. But we do the same thing on the NEP side. There's a little bit of communication, a little bit of cooperation, trying to make things happen on these bigger tracks.
An NEP back to the track tomorrow night. Going to be racing at Las Vegas for the NetBet-sponsored race. That's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get there, we got to get through 80 laps at Talladega here with the Lugz Cup Series, the pace car down on a pit road, getting ready to take that green flag as we kind of slowly look through the entire field. There's the 18 of Trevor Absher, last season's champion, run on a part-time schedule this year. He's starting mid-pack, but up front going to be Coppola and Ellard. Green flag flies. We're racing here at Talladega Motor Speedway.
Yeah, from last night at the world's fastest parking lot to America's fastest super speedway, and things happen in a hurry here. Things develop fast, they come together fast. Sometimes they end poorly in a hurry.
100%. You'll be able to see all of the 8 drivers rocking those yellow championship banners above the windshields. They've got yellow spoilers as well. And you can see all the winner stickers on that Coppola machine. The 77 car has 5 wins on the season. And he came in here with the points lead and going to try and win himself a 4th straight race here at Talladega. Off to a great start. Started on the pole. Looks like he's going to lead lap number 1.
Yeah, he's got that car pinned right to the apron there. I mean, looks like he's got a good line behind him. I see a couple Chevys up there, Ford, Toyota lurking in 4th, all kind of lining up, trying to feel things out. It's way too early to race too hard at this point. You just kind of want to find a rhythm.
21 drivers starting the race. Looks like Colin Ziemer in the 32 car going to start the race from the pits. So 20 cars currently on track right now. And you can see already starting to break up into groups. You can see the top 6, 7 cars kind of single file doing a little conveyor belt action. They're up towards the front. They're going to try and put some distance between them and this second group, currently being led by Jamison Middlemiss in the number 16 car, who's broken away just a little bit from that second pack. But they're going to need to get themselves organized and into a single line if they're going to want to get up there and fight with that top pack.
Yeah, you don't want to waste any time in the pack trying to get. I can't say I've driven the Cup cars on the Speedway yet, but I know some of the cars I've driven in the past. Unfortunately, you really have to keep that momentum high, or it's very easy to lose the pack. It's very easy to fall out of contention in a hurry.
100%. Everybody minding their P's and Q's at this point in time. You can see the Hendrick Motorsports get drivers to 5, the 48. All those guys getting ready to line up. Ed Boyles Jr. up in the championship hunt, the 48. Wade Palmer the 5th in there, the 24 car. Matt Mackin all kind of tucked into this group here. Not really lined up. Looks like they're starting to kind of line up there on that high side. They're going to try and get around the 2 as well as Jamison Middlemiss, the 2 of Bobby Justice, 16 of Jamison Middlemiss, and then maybe try and set their sights there on that front pack that's kind of single file. There you can see still status quo up front. 77, Kenny Coppola, Dave Douthwaite, Chris Spear, Wayne Bowen, and Ken Ellert rounding out the top 5. Ellert dropping back just a few spots in that McDonald's ride. Kevin Ruff, Guy Bonifield, Jimmy Absher, Ed Boyles Jr., and Michael Miller currently rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, this is a 4 laps into an 80-lap feature. You've got to just kind of settle down at this point, and that's what we see here. That first 6 kind of broke one way there, a little bit of gap back, but then that top eight pack, I mean, they've put a good distance on the field. The field's going to need probably a couple yellows to get themselves back into contention. But at this point, you just wait. 4 laps in, you're waiting for you're just biding your time.
And before I got into the Dane TV deal, super speedway racing was pretty much my forte. I did it for a very, very long time. Never really good at it. It was a lot of luck that's kind of wrapped up in it with the big track racing. Jeff, I'm sure you can attest to that as well. And I've noticed that a lot of these longer races, the 70, 80 lappers here at Daytona, Talladega, the super speedways, they're kind of split into three sections almost. The first one, you kind of get in line, you feel the car out just a little bit, you pretty much know what you're going to get. Everybody's running something very, very similar. Then the middle of the race, as you get in right around halfway or so, you kind of go to school at that point. You start studying the drivers around you. Who can do what, who's quicker, who's slower, who can run the high side, who can run the low side, who can push, who can pull, things like that. Because you're really going to need to be able to work with somebody, that you can work with, that kind of you're familiar with their racing style, but you need to make sure that the cars gel as well. So I think we'll see after maybe 10, 15, 20 laps or so, you're going to start seeing some of these guys kind of pair up, run up towards the front, see what happens from there as the 52 car finds himself pointed very much in the wrong direction. It looks like the green flag is going to stay out. Caution flag comes out. Caution number 1 here on lap number 6.
Hard to say what this is going to mean for strategy at this point. I mean, you've got an early yellow, but it's almost too early to be meaningful at this point. I don't think you're going to benefit a lot from a fuel stop. You're probably just better to stay out, let things shake out themselves. Unless of course you're Moffitt in the 52.
100%. He'll probably come down, get 4 fresh tires and some Sunoco race fuel in that number 52 machine. But we're going to back this up, take a peek here, see if we can find out exactly what it is that brought out this caution. And this is actually in that second pack, it looks like, jammed all up in with those Hendrick Motorsports drivers for the Kong Beer Bong instant replay. And we're going to take a look, focus in on that 52 car right in behind the 16 of Middlemiss and right in front of the number 2 car there of Bobby Justice. And you can see a little bit of a checkup. The 52 gets into the back of the 16, nowhere for him to go, and he gets spun by the number 2 car. But the good news here, Jeff, looks like there was no major contact. Does a great job keeping it off the wall, keeping it off the safer barriers. He's going to be able to hammer down and rejoin this field.
Yeah, a little bit of body damage, but that's not something you can't overcome at a plate track. I mean, we've seen over the years, you can, as long as you're in the draft, it might impact whether you can lead, but you can certainly follow.
100%. We've seen that happen time and time again here on the super speedways, where you get a little bit of nose damage, you get a little bit of damage up on the front of the race car, and doesn't quite do anything for you out in the front, but you're able to tuck in behind the car in front of you and really get them a good push. So not out of the fight just yet, and a long way to go. So he's still got time to work on that race car as well.
Big break for Zimmer also in the 32. You talked about him starting off pit road. We might actually have a lot of cars coming into the pits.
Yeah, taking a peek. Leader 77 going to bring them all down. Here we go. Business is about to pick up. Feeding time at the zoo, as it were. And you're right. It looks like everybody coming on down pit road. This is going to be interesting as we've got 7 laps on the set of tires. We might see some fuel only, might see some 2-tire stops, but we're just going to have to sit back and wait and see what we get here.
I think fuel's the name of the game, and at that point, I mean, if at this point, there's really no benefit to staying out. If everybody's coming in, come in, get a splash of fuel, come out. What do we have for tires on these cars? Do we have a couple sets in the pits?
I believe we've got 3 sets of tires on the pits, and there you see the race off pit road being won by that yellow and red car. So that was a quick fuel-only stop, and looks like we might have a couple of guys that may have stayed out on track to get themselves a lap led. Moffitt and Zimmer staying out, but they'll more than likely come down pit road here, second time by. And yeah, I believe these guys have 6 sets of tires, 3 sets of tires down on pit road. So going to be able to split it out, I think, evenly throughout this race, but it's really going to depend on where these caution flags fly.
Exactly. That's a wild card. You really don't know. You don't really know. And at this point, if the leaders are coming down for fuel, there's no point in staying on the track and avoiding that fuel stop, being 6 to 7 laps short on a run. You just don't want to be. You don't want to be caught off sequence if you can help it.
100%. You can see a couple of cars out in the front there. See if we can take a quick peek here at the pit stop strategy, just to see what it was these guys did down on pit road. And you can see the pit stop times here as they come up. No, you can't. All you can see is bars on that. That's kind of odd. See if we can get... well, that kind of shows everybody staying out there. Nobody picking up tires at this point. So it looks like everybody coming down for fuel only. And you can see those top 2 drivers, Moffitt and Zimmer, stayed out, gained a few positions. But we're coming up on pit entry right now. So we might very well see these guys come down pit road. And at this point, I would say you're going to lose a lot of track position anyway. You may as well come down and get 4 fresh tires.
Yeah, it's hard to say what tires. I mean, tires never seem to play that much into the plate races these days. You see guys going ridiculous number of laps on an old set of tires, and as long as you can stay in the draft, the tires aren't. But also Talladega and Daytona, very different tracks despite similar configuration.
100%. You can see those top 2 drivers coming down. Zimmer's going to fake out and stay out on track in that 32 car. So we'll see. That's going to be interesting. 8 laps on the tires once we get the restart. Probably be on lap 9 or 10 or so. So we'll see how that car is able to hold up. And that's going to be one of those things that all the crew chiefs and all the drivers are going to focus in on to see how well that car handles without coming down to get tires with everybody else and without adding the fuel load to the back of that car as well. So as these cars burn up fuel, the back end kind of comes up because they're not quite as heavy, and that might be part of the game plan here for the 32 and the 33. Zimmer and Bonifield staying out. Everybody else coming down pit road for fuel, and 77 of Kenny Capola started up front, currently scored in the 3rd position. Going to restart inside row number 2.
Yeah, with a couple Fords out front, it'll be interesting to see if they can hook up, if there's any manufacturer alliance there. I mean, I'm not sure how closely Zimmer's working with the other Ford teams, but keep in mind, I mean, if he was running a couple slow laps early, he may not have as much wear on those tires just yet. Might not have pressured it in the early laps if he was just kind of hanging out waiting for that early caution to fall.
And you can see the lights are off on the iRacing pace car. Everybody lined up 2 by 2, getting ready to take the restart here on lap number 10. Already 1/8 distance in this one. 80 laps on the board for the Alabama 225, brought to you by Secret Simulations. Again, check those guys out on Facebook. Big supporters of the Lugz Cup Series, Verdane TV, as well as sim racing as a whole. And they've got a lot of cool stuff getting worked on as well. We've also got a new partnership here at Verdane TV with U-House Race Designs, which is very, very cool. Very excited. Still kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but check those guys out over on Facebook as well. U-House Racing Design. It's lots of cool paint schemes, button boxes, you name it, man. Another good group for sim racers, by sim racers for sim racers, and you're always able to find whatever it is that you need. So be sure to check those guys out as well. But still racing for a championship here at this point. 8 drivers: Wortman, Hume, Boyles, Ruff, Bowen, Bonifield, Douthwaite, and Coppola, the 8 drivers eligible for that championship. And oh, by the way, we've still got the Bounty Hunter Challenge. That's up to $115. Any driver outside of the championship hunt, any driver without that yellow windshield over the banner that comes home with a victory before the end of the season is going to claim that bounty. 115 big ones into the old pocketbook. And that'll buy a whole bunch of beer. But it's going to be up to Kenny Coppola, I think, to let anybody win that. Won the last 3 races, completely swept the round of 12. All 3 races parked it in victory lane. Green flag is out at this point, and you can see he's in a good spot right now, right in behind the leaders. And it looks like a couple of drivers spun the tires just a little bit, but we keep it green, we keep it clean, 2 wide heading into turn number 1.
But, you know, if there's a track where the bounty is going to be up for grabs, this is the one. Talladega has always been the kind of track that has catered to new winners, to random winners. I mean, you've got guys like Richard Brickhouse, Bobby Hillen, who scored their only career Cup wins here at this track. I mean, it's just, for whatever reason, it's always had that mystique about it.
Yeah, and it's always cool to see some of the lower budget NASCAR teams come out on top here at Talladega, Daytona. It's one of those things where it's a big race, and everybody knows that you've got to kind of work with the draft, work with other drivers, and there's a lot of luck involved as well. But it's always cool to see new winners and new people coming home in a victory lane, and it's great to see. It's cool to see this race too, with as many unknowns kind of kicking off the round of 8. And so close to the championship race here on January 26th at Homestead Miami Speedway, coming up in just a few weeks' time. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think the stories that we're looking at today are going to be very, very different here coming up in 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, and a plate track at the beginning of the round, you're not totally burned if something happens here, because there is so much at a plate track that's out of your control. You can't, Mark Martin said it years ago, you can't use your skill in the same way to avoid the wrecks. Sometimes you just get caught up in whatever happens.
And you can see right now, working lap number 11, everybody pretty much single file. Bonifield Zemer able to hold on to the lead. Douthwaite up there as well in the 34 car on those older tires. So you can bet that's going to be something that everybody else is going to keep in mind later on in this race. But we do have to keep an eye on them. If this thing does go green for the entire distance, without a caution flag coming out, those guys are going to have to pit about 8 to 10 laps earlier than everybody else, because they didn't quite get the fuel tanks full. And it's got a little bit of a green flag feel right now. You can see a lot of these drivers in this front pack pretty much nose to tail all the way through.
Yeah, it's definitely shaping up that way. I mean, you've got 3 Fords out the front. We've got a Chevy, a Toyota, and I mean, we got a good little pack out front. We'll see what they can do. I don't know. I don't feel confident saying it'll go green all the way. This is Talladega. This is Talladega. You can never count on that.
100%. Just kind of sifting through the camera angles here provided by TrackCams22.com. A lot of work put into these beautiful camera shots for the iRacing simulator. TrackCams22 providing Verdane TV with those cameras, and you can see all sorts of different action at all the major Cup tracks, and lots of cool stuff in there as well. The road racing cameras, be sure to check those out as well. TrackCams22.com always bringing us a beautiful picture of the action, and you can see the action picking up front. New leader Bonifield in the 33, taking that forward up to the point. Zemer tucking in the second spot. Douthwaite in the 34 right there, and Kenny Coppola holding on to the top 5 in 4th, with Wayne Bowen in the 11 car rounding out the top 5.
it looks like Middlemiss has dropped quite a bit off the pace. He was caught up. He was caught up in that earlier wreck with 52, and you can see he's dropped way off the pack. He's about a half lap behind the leaders right now.
Kind of biding this time at this point, seeing if caution flag comes out to bunch this field back up. But yeah, you can see 26 seconds, 27 seconds now off the pace for that number 16 car, and doesn't look as though there's a lot of damage on that machine, so may very well have just lost the draft and just kind of holding on. There you can see a little bit of damage there on the right front. So still holding on to it in 20th place right now, but right now everybody pretty much single file here in the top 20 cars or so, doing a little conveyor belt racing here at Talladega as we cross the stripe for lap number 15.
It is infuriating when you're out there and you do lose the draft. I mean, this is a track, you've got your foot to the floor. There's really not much that changes about that. You're picking a line, but you're flat out the whole time. And there's nothing worse than watching that Delta bar and you're losing time and there's nothing you can do. You're putting everything you can into it, but there's no faster you can get that car to go. But we got somebody, Middlemiss is dropping way off the pace, but we got somebody else off the pace back in 21st. Oh, we got our first retirement. Looks like Ruff in the 8 car has joined the attrition list there in 21st.
Yeah, it's a long race to run around this big old racetrack by yourself, and a lot of times if you lose the draft and you can see 20 cars lined up clicking off laps like this, it's kind of a tough call to try and stay in that race. But crossing the stripe, Bonifield taking himself another lap lead in this pack. Front pack looks like about 16 cars strong, a little 3-car breakaway with Justice Cook and Battles back in behind from 17th on to 19th. Middlemiss all by himself, and Kevin Ruff down in the garage area, the 8-car parked for the evening. And this is where the storylines start to kind of pick up just a little bit, because the 33 being out front like that, not really saving any fuel. The 32 potentially might be saving some fuel. The 34 of Downsweight as well, trying to save just a little bit, but it's really tough to try and save fuel out in the front to try and hold on to the lead and keep all that in mind. And I believe these guys run full fuel tanks here as well. So we're looking at maybe a 35 to 40 lap fuel window with these cars at Talladega, and it's gonna be real interesting as we get closer and closer towards the end of the run.
There's always 2 trains of thought when you run these races. You can either race from the front or you can hang out at the back. But the problem with hanging out at the back, I mean, sometimes when you do lose that pack, you've got to be able to get back through. And we've seen some of these modern cars. It's just harder and harder to carve through. This isn't, it's not Talladega 1999 with Dale Earnhardt again. Or Talladega 2000. You don't have the ability to just pass at will.
100%. You do get a little bit of the side draft and all that good stuff, but it's really tough to try and make a move by yourself. You really have to work with your teammates and with other guys that are out there on the racetrack as well to try and get yourself up to the front, try and get yourself a little bit of an advantage. And right now we pretty much see everybody on the same page, just clicking off laps. They know it's a super long race. There you can see, I believe that was Middlemiss coming up in the picture there in the 16 car. So he's going to have a chance, an opportunity to try and tuck in with this pack if he can make the move happen quick enough and at least catch the draft and run the same pace as everybody else. The only negative side there is he's going to be 1 lap down, and you can see actually it looks like there's a little bit more damage than we might have seen earlier on the right side of that race car. So we'll see if Jamison Middlemiss is able to take that 16 and kind of tuck in behind this pack to see if he can pick the speed up just a little bit. Right now, it looks like he's going to try it. He'll try it. He'll try and tuck in there, and we'll see if he can keep up. Nope. Looks like
the leaders are coming in. Leaders are coming in.
How about that? Green flag pit stops. There they come. 33, 32. So we might be running a little bit smaller fuel tanks than we thought. There's a 32 of Zemer down on pit road. Guy Bonifield down there as well. And to keep in mind, these 2 drivers stayed out under that caution flag on lap number 8. So they're going to come down. They're going to get some fuel. Potentially maybe get some tires. Dave Douthwaite in the 34 car, he stayed out. Kenny Capola, the first car off of pit road with a full tank of fuel. So he's got himself about 8 or 9 more laps that he can run, but we might see these guys kind of press the issue just a little bit, depending on what the fuel strategy looks like.
Well, that's exactly it. They've called their shot. They've come in. They're probably going to try to get by on one more stop and hope that they can just make it to the end from there. Now everybody else is kind of left on the cusp. Do you pit now? Do you hang out a few more laps? What do you, it's all a question. It's monkey see, monkey do out front. Everybody's just going to follow the leader, because if you don't come off pit road with somebody else, you're going to end up like 16. You're going to be off the pace, and it is hard to hook on the tail end of that draft.
about a second and a half gap between the 32 and the 33. So those drivers are going to take probably a lap or two before they're able to get hooked back up. And in that time, this freight train is coming, being led by Dave Douthwaite in that 34 machine. They're going to fly right on by these two drivers if they're not able to get hooked up and try and catch on the back of the draft here. And that's one of the things that's going to be frustrating. You can come down pit road and you can know that everybody else has to come down here and pit. But if you pit and you're only 2 cars or 1 car, and say the next lap 6, 7 cars pit, they come down, they come out, they exit together, they're able to draft together, they're going to be a whole lot quicker in that 5, 6, 7 car pack than you and maybe one other car. So that's also going to be something that these drivers are going to be talking about on their voice channels as well, to see who's coming down when the teams are coming down, and potentially when your competition's coming down as well. You always want to try and work with somebody out there on the racetrack for sure.
Yeah, those 2 cars are now only they're only about 7 seconds ahead of the leaders. It's not a lot of time, and they unfortunately, I mean, they could drag the brake a little bit to try to catch up, but you're still, look at we can see them, they're just dropping like a rock. Now, as far as I did notice, that Ruff is back on track 3 laps down. But only critical if we're talking points, because if there is something that comes up, that's one more position you have to worry about.
Yeah, you can take a peek there at the top of that windshield. Kevin Ruff is in the championship round of 8, so trying to stay out and hoping for a wreck at this point. Wants to try and capitalize on somebody else's mishap here to see if he can hold on to a good point standings and move on to the round of 4, the championship race at Homestead Miami Speedway on January 26th, coming up here in just a few weeks' time, live on Verdane TV. And well, it looks like Douthwaite's got the same, at least a similar plan up in the front. You can see the top 4 have those yellow windshield banners. There's a couple more floating around towards the back of this front pack. But these guys know that this race is a big race to win here in the championship round of 8. You made mention earlier, Jeff, you don't necessarily have to focus on having a good race here. It's almost like having a mulligan here at the beginning of the round. You have 2 more races to try and get yourself a win and have yourself a good solid run. But if you can leave Talladega Super Speedway with a solid finish or even a win, that counts as a win in my book.
Oh, absolutely. These big tracks are all about survival. And it's not necessarily not having to worry about the mulligan. It's just if these kinds of races are, I hate to say it, but they're basically a lottery. And you hate to be in that position in a transfer race. Closing out a round of 3, and all of a sudden finding out that whatever you had just wasn't enough.
5 car of Ed Boyles Jr. taking a peek at the outside, comes back in line, gets a little bit squirrely, but he's able to hold on to it. We're getting a little bit closer to that middle portion of the race that I talked about earlier, where these drivers are going to start and try to do a little bit of homework, do a little bit of studying. You can see the 5 car working with his Hendrick Motorsports teammate there, Mike Miller in the 48, who jumps up on the high side, kind of puts a gap between he and the 5 car. Look for a move here in the next lap or 2 with those 5 and the 48 car kind of teaming up and maybe trying that high side out to see how much of a run they're able to get, how much of a run they're able to kind of put together as they work together, being teammates. That's one of the big-time advantages here. The 9 car of Matt Mackin, another Hendrick Motorsports entry up in the top 10 as well. You can see that 9 Chase Elliott ride a little bit further on back in the pack, but this is where you're going to start to see the guys dip out of line, try and hook up with other drivers, maybe push, maybe pull, and see what it is they've got, how long it's going to take that run to get up to the front of the pack. And you can see those couple of guys that came down pit road, Zemer and Bonifield, the 32 and 33 respectively, coming up on losing a lap here is Dave Douthwaite really pulling this 16 car pack around the racetrack very quickly.
Yeah, that 2-car pack just can't run the same speed, but they've kind of leveled out. I mean, they're dropping back, but they're not dropping back nearly as quickly as they were earlier. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, if they could pick up a couple guys who come into pit, that could be a benefit to them. But those guys are going to have to probably pit pretty soon because they're going to end up a lap down anyhow.
Yeah, and one of the things that we really have to keep an eye on here as well, these 2 drivers, they're going to be able to pick up a little bit of drafting time from this pack, but it's coming up on the time where these guys are going to come, everybody in this lead pack, just like that. They're going to come down pit road, and they're going to lose that drafting help, the 33 and the 32. So Kenny Capola, a little too hot to trot, goes down on the grass. He's trying to hold on to it. That is not what you want to see. That's going to be hard to recover from because you see he's losing a lot of positions right there on pit lane. Could have been a lot worse, but man, that could have been a whole lot better for the 77.
Seconds on pit road or minutes on the track, it seems sometimes, and I mean that's a costly gaff. Now we did see a couple of Hendrick teammates stayed out on the track. It looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. All the Hendrick cars are out together. So if they can pull back together here, we might see something going on there. But again, they're pushing the envelope. Now you're going to have a pack of 10 running down a pack of 5.
100%. And this is where things could get dangerous for the field. All the Hendrick Motorsports drivers with Keith Hume Sr. in the number 1 car in tow, they're all going to come down pit road. If they can come down, 24, a little bit on the hot side. Looks like he's going to get it down. We'll have to double check on the penalties here, but you've got 4 to 5 Hendrick Motorsports car pitting together here at this point. That's a dangerous combination for the rest of the field. If these guys are able to hook up and really draft and really start picking up and putting some fast lap times down, you see the 99 car coming in here as well. That's going to be Nolan in the 99. Joshua Nolan, the owner of Secret Simulations and the sponsor of tonight's race, having himself a solid run, but here they come. Hendrick Motorsports coming off a pit road. This is going to get very, very interesting very quickly. Dave Douthwaite still leading. Well, there's not really a pack anymore. He's still leading the race. Technically, he's the first car that still has to come down pit road. Wayne Bowen in behind him, and Tim Wortman Jr. still out there as well. But these Hendrick Motorsports guys coming off a pit road, doesn't look like they lost themselves a lot of time.
Now it'll be interesting to see where that all shakes out relative to the other cars. And the five kind of slid through his pit stall, had to back up a tad, but it doesn't look like it cost him in the long run. But these are fuel stops mostly. They're early stops, grab some fuel, don't really need to do much with tires, and then just coast until that closing pit window.
48 car of Michael Miller still on pit road. We're going to have to double check and see if there was a speeding penalty on that. He's just now coming off pit road, being scored in the 19th position. Not quite a lap down, but definitely going to get there rather quickly. Dave Douthwaite, the leader. Wayne Bowen in second. Wade Palmer, the 5th, and Ed Boyles Jr. with Keith Hume Sr., the top 5 currently. Tim Wortman Jr. in the 00 car, bringing Chris Spear to the party as well. And the number 7 right in behind him. Those drivers are hooked up in the middle lane, and they see themselves an opportunity to try and get around some of these guys that are not quite hooked up. They're just kind of coming off pit road, trying to shake the cobwebs just a little bit. The 00 and the 7, though, they are hooked up, and it looks like the 24 and the 5 are going to get hooked up here as well. So they're going to try and chase down the leaders of Douthwaite and Bowen.
Worth noting, the two cars that pitted earlier, Bonifield and Zemer, they are running about 10 seconds behind the leaders at this point after all this shakes out. So, that shows you they came in from the lead. When it all comes down to it, they lost 10 seconds of track time. That's really costly.
100%. You can see Douthwaite up front in a Ford, right in behind him, the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota of Wayne Bowen. And then it's about 67 Chevys in behind them in the top 10 all the way throughout. Toyota going to take the 10th spot with last season's champion Trevor Apsher there in the 18 machine. But you can see Chevy really rising to the top here at this point. Not quite up in the lead, but there's a whole bunch of Chevys starting to work together. Some of them teammates, some of them just running the same manufacturers. And you can see they're coming up on the Middle Miss machine of number 16. Going to put him, well, he's already a lap down, but they're going to get around the 16 car. Looks like they're all going to pass him around on the high side, and he's going to hold down on that bottom. And you can see that other group right in behind them, him being led by Kenny Coppola, starting to make a little magic happen as well. Those 4 drivers kind of hooked up nose to tail. They're going to try and maybe chase down the second group and see if they can work together to chase down the leaders.
Yeah, Coppola, I'll give him credit. He's 4.5 seconds back of the leaders right now. That's really not that bad considering what happened coming into pit road. That pit entry could have been catastrophic, and he's actually not in all that bad a position. He's leading a draft pack. Yeah, he's quite a bit off of that pack, but he's still in the hunt. It's way too early to start counting anybody out.
And has a couple of fast drivers right in behind him as well, kind of working together. Moffitt, Mackin, and Apsher on the back bumper. Kenny Coppola won the last 3 races here, has a broken ankle, won a road course with a broken ankle. I don't know anybody else that can claim that here in the iRacing or the sim racing world, but been on an absolute tear over the past month or so and really gunning for that championship trophy. Wants to get himself in that round of 4, wants to fight for that championship here at Homestead, Miami on January 26th live on AIM TV, and doing everything in his power to get there. He's having a good solid run and up in the top 3 or so for most of the race. Led some laps, a mishap on pit road, and still inside the top 10. And we've only had one, maybe two cautions here throughout the entire night, and up front, it's still these championship contenders. Douthwaite in the 34 holding on to it. Wayne Bowen in the 11 car holding on to it as well. And there you can see Kevin Ruff. He's up in third in line, but he's a couple laps down in that 8 car, currently being scored in the 20th position. But you can see that 8 car is still pretty fast. There you can see Michael Miller in the 48 getting ready to go a lap down there as well. Had a rough pit stop, may very well have had himself a speeding penalty coming down. Had to stay for an extended time there on pit road. But we cross the stripe. We're getting ready to start lap number 32, getting closer and closer to halfway here for the Alabama 225, brought to you by Secret Simulations.
Yeah, you hate to count anybody out who's a lap down. I mean, you always have that free pass you can count on in a caution, but you can't count on that many cautions in a race like this. So at this point, you're just counting on attrition if that's the case. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we've got the 48 should be able to hook up and stay with the leaders. He seemed like he had the pace, so we'll see if Miller can hang with that crowd. But he's, maybe not, but it looks like his teammates are coming up, and I'm guessing they'll probably be able to tag on the end of that.
And one of the cool things, too, about this series being open setups, a lot of these teammates will spend weeks practicing at certain types of tracks, and super speedways is one of those types of tracks where everybody wants to come home with a win at Talladega. Everybody wants to come home with a win at Daytona, and a lot of times you're able to kind of use your teammates to work with you, whether you're pushing your teammate or your teammate's pushing you. And every once in a while you pick up the old Facebook Messenger, you pick up the cell phone or Snapchat or whatever you're using for communication these days, and you kind of reach out to maybe another team and say, hey, listen, we got a couple of guys. We are bad fast. We got this awesome setup hooked up, and we want to hook you guys up with our setup if you'll work with us. And we've seen that happen many, many times before here in the Lugz Cup Series. I know myself, I used to do it all the time. Never really officially a part of the team, unless you want to call it an AIM Racing Administrators team. I know you've been there, Jeff. It's kind of tough to be on a team when you're one of the head honchos in a league, but it's always good to try and find somebody before the race to say, hey, listen, if we find each other on track, maybe we should work together and try and figure this out. And I think that's what we're seeing here, and I think that's why you're seeing the Hendrick Motorsports stable is so strong. The good communication between all of their drivers, the 2 Palmers, Ed Boyles Jr. in the 5 car, and everybody else with that Hendrick Motorsports stable, always working together on practice, always working together on setups. And really, this season, the second season here for the Lugz Cup Series, Richard Childress Racing and Chris Spire Motorsports, the 7 and the 77, have been kind of working together and really dominating this season. And that really shows with the 77 car coming home with 3 victories right in a row over the past 3 races, completely sweeping out the round of 12. And Talladega is no different than any of that. You can see the 34 and the 11 still out front, but this second pack is really starting to close in. You can see in the Verdane TV scoring tower there on the left-hand side of your screen, that Hendrick Motorsports duo of Palmer and Boyles. That gap is shrinking. They're down to about a second lead now for these 2 drivers, and they're going to do everything in their power to try and close that gap.
That gap's shrinking because the lead pack lost a little bit of their help. Kevin Ruff pulled off for a pit stop there, and that leaves you with 2 cars drafting at the front. You've got a very fast pack, a nice solid line out back there. They're going to run them down in a hurry, and we can see. I mean, they've already shaved about a second off that advantage. Those leaders might be a sitting duck here.
Yeah, I can see the 48 car back in the 19th position, trying to get a lap back the hard way. He's going to drive around the outside. We got a couple of drivers coming off of pit road there. You see the 32 of Seamer on a different sequence than everybody else. The 48 trying to make it happen by himself there, but not quite there. And you can see the Hendrick Motorsports guys trying to peek out just a little bit, maybe get out on that high side, help that 48 car get that lap back and get themselves around to the lead. But you can start to see here as we're 4 laps from halfway, 3.5 laps from halfway, starting to get a little bit dicey up towards the front. Everybody's getting antsy. Everybody wants to get up there and try and lead this race, get a couple of laps led, get a little bit of TV time here as well. But Douthwaite and Bowen, they've got company. The rest of the pack, or this second pack, has caught them up, putting us at 8 cars strong up here in the front with a couple of lappers thrown in the mix as well.
We've definitely got something going with fuel strategy, though, because I mean we just saw the 32 and the 33 off pit road, and those 2 cars. I mean, there's no way they were that low on fuel. There's no way they're pitting only 20 laps into a run. So I mean, apparently we're running pretty limited fuel capacity here. That's the only thing I think is going on. So it'll be interesting to see when these leaders come in, and that fuel capacity will dice things up pretty aggressively.
especially with this race going as green as long as it has been. A lot of times if you try and gamble on the first or second pit stop and maybe stay out because of the caution flag and it stays green the rest of the time, it's really tough to break yourself away from that fuel schedule that you've got. But if we were able to get a caution flag, it would pretty much put everybody on the same playing field here at this point. But you can see there's a lot of drivers that are coming off pit road and losing a lap here to this front 8 cars or so. The 14 of Derek Cook going down a lap there. Josh Battles in the 41. He's going down a lap there as well. And they're going to try and tuck into the back of this field, maybe hold on to see if these guys come down pit road. But 2 laps to halfway, still the number 34 car, Dave Douthwaite out front, Wayne Bowen right in behind him, Wayne Palmer, Ed Boyles Jr., and Tim Wortman Jr. the top 5. How about Chris Spear up to 6th? Keith Hume Sr., Josh Nolan, Kenny Capola, and Jimmy Absher rounding out the top 10 right now with the pit stops. Drew Moffitt, Matt Mackin, and Ken Eller, the 13 drivers on the lead lap currently. But we've got a lot of different racing strategies, a lot of different fuel strategies here as well. 1 lap away as we cross the stripe from the halfway point here at Talladega.
And strategy can be such a gamble. We saw it last week at Charlotte with the NEP. We saw Brent Roy took a real big gamble, came in very early for a second set of tires, but he and Cody LeBlanc marched right through the field. Brent was able to snag his first career win. I mean, obviously late caution really would have undone his whole performance there, but I mean, I was on the opposite side. I didn't want to take that set of tires because I didn't want to find myself on used rubber at the end of the race, and it cost me. I mean, maybe if I'd thrown those tires on, maybe I'm looking at let's be realistic. Maybe I'm looking at 20th instead of 24th, but still.
And that's one of the glories of being up here in the production booth and the commentary booth. You can make up the stories, make up the strategies, and, well, you don't really have to worry about it too much because you're not racing for points here as you're calling the battle. And that's why I've been here up in the production booth for almost 2 years now, coming up here on our 2-year anniversary here for Verdane TV this March in just a couple of months. Hard to think. Over 500, getting closer to 600 live shows that we broadcasted at the start of this COVID pandemic. We hope you're staying healthy as much as you can. I know the second wave or whatever it is pretty brutal. A lot of people I know have got it, and we're just hoping everybody gets a good, quick recovery. I know Dad's, he might have fallen asleep at this point, but he's watching from his hospital bed. So I want to say happy birthday a couple days ago to you, Dad. I know you're watching, love you, and get well soon, get home soon. We miss you. But Dave Douthwaite still out front, Wayne Bowen right in behind him, Palmer, Boyles, Wortman in the top 5, Spear, Hume, Nolan, Capola, and Absher still the top 10. And you can see we've got an 8-car breakaway of drivers that are on the lead lap. A couple of mixed-in drivers that may or may not be a lap down in the mix as well, but pretty much just logging laps at this point, just crossed into the halfway point. And again, want to thank everybody for tuning in here tonight. Showtime, Paul Strickland Jr. being joined by Jeff Brown from the New England, Pennsylvania League over on Thursday nights, and calling a little Talladega action. The Alabama 225 here at Talladega Super Speedway, brought to you by Secret Simulations. And this is the Lugz Cup Series, round of 8. The very first race, the round of 8. And we're going to crown ourselves a champion here in 4 weeks' time on January 26th, live on Verdane TV. This is the second season these cats have been with us, and it has been one heck of a ride. And Douthwaite's still out front, really holding on to that lead, and you got to figure, Jeff, he's going to be starting to run on fumes here a little bit. He's not had an opportunity to really try and save any fuel when he's running up front like that.
That is definitely a concern. I mean, we're looking at this front pack, and here we see a couple of guys at the back end of the top 10 coming in for fuel now. But we're gonna see those leaders have to make a stop soon, and we're gonna see another little shuffle there.
And that's going to force the hand of some of these guys that are still out on track. You look up and you see that there's a couple of guys down on pit road, and you think, well, what are they thinking? What do they know that I don't know? And Capola, Moffitt, Absher, Michael Miller all down on pit road. The 48 down there again for another extended pit stop, trying to figure out what's going on with that machine. But everybody else down and away, and you can see Douthwaite going to come down, Bowen going to come down as well. A couple of other cars as well. Wortman and Spear, they're going to come down. 4-car breakaway down on pit road. 4 cars stay out. The Hendrick Motorsports duo of Palmer and Boyles, 1 and 2. Keith Hume Sr., Joshua Nolan in 4th, and Matt Mackin going to hold on to that pack as well. Another Hendrick Motorsports teammate in that. Actually, he's back just a little bit further, but he's running in the 5th position. So 4 more drivers coming down pit road, and Kenny Capola back up to speed all by himself. It looks like that first group is very, very spread out on the racetrack. And that's going to give an advantage to these guys if they can get hooked up. You can see the exit of pit road there. All 4 of those drivers pretty much coming out nose to tail. That might be the advantage here. We'll see what this next group, this third group here, up in the front can do as they get ready to make their pit stops. They're coming off of turn 4. They're all down on the apron. They're going to come down and get some fuel here as well. And you can see the 24 car gets up to the front. He gets around Boyles, Hume in third, Nolan in fourth rather. And Matt Mackin going to close the gap just a little bit. He's going to bring the Stewart Haas Racing teammates, the 14 and the 41, down pit road as well. Struggling a little bit for Derek Cook and Josh Battles, a lap or 2 down towards the back of the pack. But they're going to pit with some of these leaders and see what happens. You can see a couple of 2-tire stops, a couple of 4-tire stops as well. But we'll see if we can catch back up with Dave Douthwaite, who's now hooked up with the 00 of Tim Wortman Jr. and the 23 of Ken Ellard. They're coming out of turn number 4, crossing the entry to pit road. Up to speed. They're going to come home. I think the 34 is going to come home with the lead here as he comes out of turn number 2.
It looks like it. He's hooked up with that lap car, the 23. 00's run. Yeah, so Wortman's up in second right now. So yeah, they're going to get a little bit of distance on these guys. But those 3 cars, I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how they come off pit lane behind them, because those General Motors teammates seem to be pretty well hooked up.
So it's a Ford out front. Dave Douthwaite pretty much on the same schedule now as everybody else as we work lap number 44. Tim Wortman Jr. in behind him on the lead lap. And Ken Ellard in the 23 car. The first car 1 lap down, actually trying to get his lap back the hard way. Or at the very least, stay the first car 1 lap down in case the caution flag does in fact come out to try and get that free pass. And you can see, looking in the rearview mirror, it's about 3 seconds back to the next pack. There you see Chris Spear in the 7 car. He's hooked up with that Hendrick Motorsports duo of Wade Palmer the 5th, Ed Boyles Jr. You can see the Hendrick Motorsports guys, they want to lead, so they're going to go around Chris Spear, around the outside, try and get on that. And 7's teammate, the Chris Spear teammate of Kenny Capola, he's worked his way back up to 6th, but still not quite where he was after that's a little bit of a mix-up earlier on pit road. But you can see big push from Joshua Nolan there in the number 99 car. And I think those guys, they're not done yet. They know they've still got 35 laps to go here at Talladega. That's a long way to go, especially if we're able to get ourselves a caution and bunch this field back up. But still Douthwaite out front. A couple of drivers up in the front, still single file. Wade Palmer the 5th and the Hendrick Motorsports teammate of Ed Boyles Jr. with Chris Spear right in behind them as well. Going to try and see if they can maybe close the gap just a little bit.
Worth noting that 11 of Bowen, he was running second for the longest time with Douthwaite, and it looks like, I'm guessing, maybe threw some tires on in the pits there. He's about 11 seconds back in the lead right now. He's dropped significantly off, but he is running with a teammate back there, Absher in the 18. So he's got some traction there, but he's certainly taken himself out of the lead battle for the time being.
Yeah, still in the bottom side of the top 10, and he's hooked up with a couple of fast drivers there with the 18 and the 52. And with 11, 12 seconds being off the pace, yes, you've got fresh tires. Potentially came down, got 4 tires on that machine, but I don't think there's enough time to try and race them back. You can see Abs are going to let the 11 car go. He knows it's a little bit faster, so he's going to try and see if they can maybe click off some faster lap times with that 11 car on the point of that group. But they're going to be trying to chase down these leaders. The 34 of Douthwaite, Tim Wortman Jr., the new P2 guy, and the 00 car, Wade Palmer. Those guys are hooked up, the Hendrick Motorsports teammates of Palmer and Boyers. They've got Chris Spear in there as well, Kenny Capola. A few more seconds on back in the 77. He's leading that 99 car of Joshua Nolan. And then we're back to Wayne Bowen in the 8th position in that 11 car. Jimmy Absher, Drew Moffitt right in behind him as well.
Bonfield and Zemer, they were out front earlier too, and they've certainly their strategy has not panned out. They've actually been separated by about 10 seconds on the track right now, and they're just kind of shuffled to the back half of the lead lap there. They're just kind of biding their time at this point, hoping something happens. At this point, they're going to need a caution to shake this up.
100%. Zemer kind of all by himself there in the 32 car. At the danger of going a lap down here within the next lap or two. He's trying to close in on the 41 car of Josh Battles, who's already a lap down. Trying to see if he can make a little magic happen, find himself a drafting partner, and see if he can make up a little bit of ground here. We'll take a look at the 33 of Bonneville. He's hooked up with Keith Hume Sr. But again, those guys are all by themselves. They're making up some time just a little bit, but not enough time. And both of those guys rocking those yellow championship banners over the windshield. So this is really going to be a shakeup here in the points. As we pretty much alluded to at the beginning of the race here at Talladega, it's being that it's the first race of the round of 8, it's not necessarily a mulligan, but it's not necessarily a race you're going to hang your hat on for the round. So drivers pretty much doing a little bit of gambling here, and they're going to try and do their best to come out on top. And speaking of gambling, NEPSBET's jumping on for sponsoring the Las Vegas race tomorrow night here with the New England, Pennsylvania iRacing Group, the Shift Marketing Design Grand National Series, the longest series name that we've got here on Verdane TV. But that's going to be a lot of fun. The Xfinity cars at Las Vegas and the big Oxford 250 coming up here in about a week and a half, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. Just had the qualifier last night. Found out just who is going to be in that field. We got a couple of provisional starts we're going to be putting in there as well, and we'll get the full final field to you as quickly as we can over on the Facebook page, Verdane TV, as well as the NEPS Twitter and Facebook. And if you're looking for some entertainment, you really got to go over to Twitter. Follow NEP iRacing and follow NEPSBETS on Twitter, because the amount of trash talking you guys do over at NEP before race day is phenomenal.
And you have to keep in mind. I'm gonna break kayfabe here a little bit, if you want to call it that. But you have to keep in mind, the NEP crowd is what makes them so strong is that so many of them have those ties off the track as well as on. You keep in mind the main guys have been racing each other for years. The guys from Connecticut, Pennsylvania, there's a little bit of crossover there. Corey and Zane have raced against each other for some time. Corey's got his crowd from Stafford. There's family ties there. Corey and Kyle Casagrande both, of course. There's a lot going on there where these guys are friends and rivals at the racetrack, and then they're friends and rivals on the sim track. This was the whole point of NEP, was nobody really knew when the racetracks were going to reopen back in 2020. So this was the opportunity for everybody to get an opportunity to race with each other, not necessarily have to just go into a public lobby and have some fun. They could have some fun racing with the guys they wanted to be racing with on Saturday night, on Friday night. So that's a big attraction to the NEP, and that personality, that rivalry, that camaraderie really does boil over into the social media aspect and everything. It's a lot of fun. It's a great group of people.
Oh, 100%. It's been a lot of fun to cover the NEP races over the past couple of seasons on Verdane TV, and it's cool to throw my Verdane TV shirt on, go to the racetrack, Stafford Motor Speedway, and have guys that I've never even met before. Hey, Paul, what's going on? Hey, bud, good to meet you. I guess that's my initial meeting with Zane Farrell, the 14 car races down at Jennerstown. Came up, I believe it was for the fall final last year. I might be mistaken. It might have even been the year before that. But we had a rough night with the Renner Race Car crew. I think we wrecked all of the cars that we brought, all 4 cars for the final. And I was heading back to the camping area. I was getting ready to get myself a couple of cold adult beverages, and felt the tap on my shoulder. Hey, what's going on, bud? Yeah. I didn't realize it was the first time meeting Zane Farrell. I was just too comfortable. It's a lot of fun, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different connections on and off the racetrack, and a really, really good group. And it's fun, too, because at the end of each race, everybody kind of gets together. They go over the instant replays, go over all the incidents throughout the race, and it's almost like there's a whiteboard in the room. It's like, all right, well, Corey owes Kyle this many beers, Jeff owes this guy this many beers, everybody kind of gets together, and I know Spring Sizzler 2022 at Stafford Speedway is going to be a big party, as it always is, but a lot of the NEP guys talking about coming up for the trip.
And I'll plan to be down there. I mean, I got to see how the schedule's going to work out, but I plan to be down there for the Pro All-Star Series, returning for I believe, probably the first time since, I want to say it was 2012, when the late, great Teddy Christopher won a pass race at Stafford. So pass returns to Stafford in support of the Spring Sizzler weekend, so that'll be a blast. But Grand State Pro Stock Series also running that weekend, and it'll be interesting to try to fit both of those in a weekend, because I tend to follow the Fender car beat if I can.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of the Granite States Touring Series, Corey Casagrande in that 7CT car, beautiful paint scheme this year, swapping from red and white to blue and white this year, but rocked the Verdane TV logo on that car and won himself a heat race at Stafford Speedway. And I'm telling you, those Verdane TV stickers are worth 5 horsepower a piece.
Every sticker helps. Every dollar counts in racing, no question.
100%. But Back here at Talladega, working lap number 54, still status quo. Douthwaite up in the front, Wortman still in second. The Hendrick Motorsports duel of Palmer and Boyles in third and fourth. Chris Spear has moved himself into fifth, and Kenny Coppola, you can see him on your screen right now, leading this second pack. They're all hooked up, but it doesn't look like they're gaining too much time on that front pack, which is curious because you can see the top two drivers are hooked up. And the Hendrick Motorsports teammates are cooked up. There you can see Chris Spear there as well. So you can look at that timer. It's pretty steady right now. I think they're going to need a caution for that second pack to really come up and fight for the win here at Talladega.
Absolutely. At this point, I don't think there's really any break of strategy that's going to help. These guys are pitting within a couple laps of each other, so we're not talking a 5-lap, 10-lap swing where you can count on that. Unless somebody has a really brilliant idea to short pit somehow, you're basically counting on a caution here.
Looks like we might have had a little incident between Michael Miller and Josh Battles, but they were able to get it cleared out. Both those drivers going to hit pit lane here with 25 laps to go, and we stay clean and green here at Talladega for the Alabama 225, brought to you by Secret Simulations. Again, check those cats out on Facebook, Secret Simulations, right in that little search bar, and it pops them right up. Big-time supporters here of the Loose Legs Cup Series, big-time supporters of us at Vidane TV, as well as sim racing as a whole. And you can see that 24 and that 5, as well as the 7, those three cars are starting to really gain a little bit of ground now on the two leaders of Douthwaite and Wortman, and that's going to spell trouble for Coppola and the gang back a little bit further. They're making up just a little bit of ground, but I think if those top 5 drivers line up, they're going to be tough to catch, even more tough to catch than they are right now.
Yeah, with only 25 laps to go, one more pit stop most likely. I think if Coppola wants to add to that win streak, he's got to count on a caution at this point. You just have to keep your nose clean and hope the yellow falls how you need it to. But with the field so spread out, that's the risk. At this point, a single car incident's probably not going to be enough to draw a yellow.
There you can see the 32 car of Zemer losing another lap to the leaders. He's going to try and tuck in behind the 00 of Tim Wortman Jr., maybe help these guys out with the draft a little bit. Not able to hold on, but he's going to be able to get himself up to speed to maybe tag on with these next 3 drivers and help those guys close that gap just a little bit. And you can see 10.6 seconds now the distance between the leader and Kenny Coppola, so he's lost a little bit of ground in that 5-car back, a little bit further on back. And with 24 laps to go, we made mention, we both made mention at this point, going to need to see a caution or going to need to see a botched pit stop or something along those lines. I would imagine these guys have to come down pit road one more time, and we're seeing that now. Kenny Coppola and the 77 coming down, Wayne Bowen, Jimmy Absher, Drew Moffitt, Ken Ellert, all down on pit road. The 48 car down on pit road again. He may very well be done for the evening. Might be parking that thing in the garage area. But final green flag pit stops on the line here tonight, and this is going to be interesting. This is where the pressure starts to pick up. Jeff, I know you've been there in NEP. Green flag pit stops are nothing to shake a stick at.
They're not, and at this point, you're looking at 23 laps to go. I'm not so sure that they can make it on a full fuel load the rest of the race. This is going to be the rate they've been pitting. I think they're going to have to make one more stop if they're pitting this early. But no, green flag pit stops, the last thing you really want to be in. There's just so much that could go wrong on that. Especially, you're calling the shots. With the NEP Endurance Series, we had a little bit of assistance where we could kind of pit for each other, pre-configure our tires, pre-configure our fuel loads. You're doing this on the fly for yourself, and you're trying to stay balanced in the draft. Keep pace with the pack. That's awful challenging in a place like this.
Yeah, and you're trying to get everything you possibly can on the pit stops, on entry, on exit. We saw the same thing happen with that 77 car of Kenny Coppola. He's no slouch. He's won the last 3 races, came in here as the point leader here tonight, and ready to rock and roll, trying to lock himself into that round of 4, the championship 4 for the championship race here at Homestead, Miami, coming up in a couple of weeks here at on Vidane TV, rather, on January 26th, just a few Wednesdays away, and came in just a little bit too hot to trot, got himself a little bit jacked up on pit road, didn't spin the car out, but came damn near close to it, and he's been struggling ever since, down in the bottom half of the top 10 after leading earlier on in the race. And you can see more pit stops, more drivers coming on down from the top 5 from the lead. Dave Douthwaite, Tim Wortman Jr., those top 2 drivers come down all by themselves, and that's going to leave Wade Palmer, Ed Boyles, Chris Spear, Joshua Nolan, Matt Mackin, and Keith Hume Sr. out on the racetrack to come down and make their potentially their final race pit stop of the evening. And with all these green flag stops, you would think, 3-4 of them into the race, you would figure it out. They're different each and every time. You're usually pitting with a different crowd, different speeds, different things to think about, lots of different strategies going on. You made mention you got to change your tires, you got to change all of the different things on a pit stop. As you can see, the top 3 drivers coming on in, the Hendrick Motorsports duel of Boyles and Palmer bringing Spear down as well, and we're going to cycle on through these pit stops and find out who's on top. But there's a lot to think about on these green flag pit stops. Makes it a little bit easier under caution. As you can see, a couple more drivers peeling off the racing surface to come down as well. Going to hand this lead over to Chris Spear in that 7 car. Get himself a lap led for the first time in, I think, a couple of weeks for that number 7 car. Struggling just a bit as we approach the second half of the season. But all those drivers now in the top 5 going to come down. Spear, Boyers, Palmer, Mackin, and Nolan. And again, for those 5 drivers, Hendrick Motorsports teammates. So if they can get hooked up here, get on the same schedule, they might be able to chase down those 2 cars with Douthwaite and Morton.
One of the drivers who's not going to be able to do that, though, is probably Coppola, because if you didn't notice, he was running right in front of Douthwaite there. He's when this all cycles around, he's going to be on the very tail end of the lead lap. Something happened on that pit stop, and he has been totally shuffled out of the opportunity to win here. But this could get very ugly for everybody as we see the Hendrick teammates, all those GM cars coming off pit road now.
And you can see Coppola doing everything he can to keep that Premier number 77 car up in front of the leader. Dave Douthwaite re-inheriting the lead. Tim Wortman Jr. right in behind him. Pardon me, as well. And then it's 40 seconds on back to 3rd place. How about that? That can't be accurate. That's not accurate. Timing and scoring updating itself, and I'll look at the right numbers here, I swear. But you can see you got a 3-car pack of Boyle, Spear, Palmer. They're trying to close the gap just a little bit, but they've got Kenny Coppola up there working, not necessarily working with the 34 and 00, but he's up there kind of drafting and running with them. So it's going to be tough for these 3 cars in the second pack to try and catch the 3 cars in the first pack. Unless Kenny Coppola is able to get on away from those 2 cars, but that's going to be a tall order, and you can see his teammate right here tucked right in behind the number 5 of Ed Boyles Jr. in that HendrickCars.com Chevrolet, and 4 cars strong, trying to chase down the lead with 19 laps to go here at Talladega.
Yeah, Coppola's not holding up that lead pack, and he led earlier. We know he's got the fast car here, but he's just stuck in a bad spot. And at this point, those 3 cars just have to continue to work together so that they can try to keep their distance. I mean, they've been keeping a steady distance on that second pack there. They've been about 1.6 to 2 seconds back all along. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes as we go. But then we've got that big drop off from 5th back to 6th. We're about 17 seconds back to that last second pack, that 3rd pack there. Those guys definitely waiting on everybody. We've beaten this dead horse into the ground plenty, but everybody at this point is definitely waiting for that caution to try to bounce back.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's almost a crapshoot here at the super speedway races. What kind of race you're going to get? If it's an action-packed, caution-filled race where there's a lot of different things going on and everybody's on the same fuel strategy and all sorts of stuff like that. But when you get these long green flag runs like this with multiple green flag pit stops, it really stretches the field out, because when you roll into the racetrack, the virtual racetrack, Talladega, Daytona, everybody's run this racetrack 1,001 times. Everybody knows they're an expert. Everybody knows that you're just going to get out there, practice your drafting, practice your passing, all the on-track stuff like that. The green flag drops and the yellow doesn't come out. A lot of drivers don't practice pit stops, and that's one of the big things here at the super speedways, the Talladega, Daytona, and the Coca-Cola Super Speedway with iRacing that came out here just recently. You got to work on pit stops, both entry, exit, and throughout the pit stop, as well as changing things up. You've got to reach over, tap the keyboard, take 2 tires, 4 tires. You got to work on your strategy. You got to make sure that your teammates are doing the same thing. So on track, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things you have to worry about, but really the races usually come down to these green flag pit stops. Who's able to get through them quickly? Who's able to work together and communicate what they're doing to their teammates or whomever they're working with that particular night or that particular lap even, or even just that particular run. And all the other things that kind of mix in together, and at the end of it, you're usually kind of lean back in the chair, you're covered in sweat, and you take a nice cold beverage, and you take your 4th place finish and you move on to the next race. So there's a lot to think about, very mentally demanding, very physically demanding here with the super speedway racing.
That's something that we got to put in play last year a little bit with the NEP Super Truck program, where NEP's been founded on short tracks. There's a lot of tracks you really can't take the gamble of pitting without losing a lap under caution. Never mind under green. But with the Super Truck series, we were able to get some longer runs in that actually necessitated some green flag pit stops. Definitely added a great dimension of strategy to the field, and that's part of what we've implemented this year with the NEP Grand National Series. Running a couple longer races on the intermediates, lower fuel loads, giving us the opportunity to bring pit strategy in and make pit strategy matter.
100%. That was a fun series to follow along with. The NEP Super Truck Series. You can check out all those races over on the Verdane TV YouTube page. And that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with that series here on Verdane TV. I know the drivers had a lot of fun as well. We did the draft here live on Verdane TV. It was kind of a team deal, and really nobody knew who they were racing with or who they were racing for getting into it, but it definitely worked out. And it was entertaining. It was entertaining as hell to watch the NEP guys in those trucks. And the schedule didn't really get published until race 1. It got voted on, or it didn't get voted on. The team owners each picked out a racetrack that they thought their crew would be good at, and it was a really neat dynamic to add into the sim racing style of racing here, and to add in all the personalities and driving styles and partners and fans and all the sorts of stuff and all the extra pizzazz that NEP brings to the table each and every week. It was a lot of fun. So if you've got yourself a spare minute or two, if you're supposed to be doing stuff at work or whatever, pull up the phone, pull up the old YouTube app, do a quick search for Verdane TV, look for that NEP Super Truck series down in there, and you'll be entertained for sure, 100%.
Absolutely, the team dynamic is so important, and I mean, obviously, plate racing is really the biggest opportunity in NASCAR type competition where you can actually see team strategy play out. But I mean, team strategy is a great part of video gaming. Going back to Team Fortress Classic, Team Fortress 2. Now you see, I mean, Counter-Strike was a favorite of mine way back when, but that team mentality that you're working for a greater goal, that's so critical in racing. So, and the NEP Super Truck Series really gave us a chance to put that to work. Getting back on track, though, I'd like to point out we've got an interesting breakaway here where the top two are running away from this right now, and that Hendrick pack has dropped about 14 seconds off the pace. So I'm not sure if they're in a fuel conservation mode, perhaps trying to see if they can make it all the way to the end.
That actually makes a whole lot of sense. I'm walking around here in the production trailer. I'm a little bit under the weather myself, so I'm fighting some hot flashes and cold sweats, and I'm really not having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun calling the race and watching the racing action, but physically not having a lot of fun here. But looking at the timing and scoring, you're exactly right. There's 3 cars up in the front. Dave Douthwaite, Tim Wortman Jr., and Kenny Coppola still up there trying to hold on to the tail end of the lead lap. But then you've got these 3 Hendrick Motorsports teammates, along with Chris Spear in the 7 car, trying to get lined up and really chase those 2 cars down. But they're losing a ton of time, almost 4 seconds now in the last lap or 2. So I think you might be onto something with fuel conservation mode, as we've got a couple more drivers coming down pit road. I think you nailed it on the head here, Jeff. Bonifield, Zemer, Justice, and Ruff down on pit road. I think we've got one more pit stop for the rest of this field.
Yeah, I don't see any way that Douthwaite and Wortman are going to make the end on fuel, which means you're going to end up with these that top 4 is going to cycle right around. There's no way they can come down pit road and get off and maintain the lead. So that's a kind of a bummer. I mean, Douthwaite has absolutely dominated this race, but at this point, strategy, he's been staying out a couple laps longer than those Hendrick teammates. This is probably going to be his undoing unless they can pull a rabbit out of their hat on fuel mileage here.
And you can see Kenny Coppola currently running in the 11th position, right in front of the leader. It's the last car on the lead lap. And if I was Douthwaite, I would try and get around that Kenny Coppola machine, because you don't want to give him any hands up or any kind of advantage, because he will take it and he will come home with the victory. He won the last 3 races here. Won at Watkins Glen with a broken ankle in that 77 car, and on an absolute tear here over the past month or so. And one of the favorites to win the championship here for Season 2 of the Lugz Cup Series, and having a blast doing it, and trying to see where the cards fall for that 77 machine, to see if he can maybe make up for that bad pit stop earlier on, just a few stops ago. But we're coming up on 10 laps to go, going to be 9 laps to go as we cross the stripe, and I think this may very well pick up. If we've got one more pit stop to go, we got a lot of action to cover.
I mean, come on. Winning at Watkins Glen on a broken ankle. I mean, we haven't seen a performance in sports like that since Greg Jennings ran for a touchdown on a broken leg in Madden all those years ago and put the team on his back, though.
Yeah, picking it up and running with it for sure. Just like he's trying to do here.
I still say that kid, Dimitri James 86 on YouTube. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, that kid should have had some sort of. I mean, it was a little bit early for certain viral things to be in place, and this is a long time ago now. But I'm showing my age. But that kid definitely should have been picked up for some sort of 5-minute broadcasting gig for a couple of years there.
Oh, 100%, 100%. You can see with 9 laps to go here at Talladega, Bobby Justice going down a lap in the 2 car, and you can take a peek. A lot of these drivers coming down pit road. Josh Battles in the 41 still down on pit road, and a little bit further on back in the top 10, some of these guys trying to jockey for position just a little bit to see who's going to line up on the inside, who's going to line up on the outside. There you can see that second pack finally starting to get hooked up. We've got probably maybe 10, maybe 12 cars kind of hooked up here, nose to file, but they're still not able to really bring down the leaders of Douthwaite and Wortman. So they might be in fuel conservation mode, like you said. They might have found themselves saving enough time, or enough fuel rather, but Douthwaite and Wortman with a 20-second lead, 8 laps to go here at Talladega. I don't know. I think this is going to come down to fuel mileage for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, that pack is backed up another 5 seconds to, the Hendrick pack's backed up there. Bowen's back up in a 4th, and Spears dropped all the way down to 10th. So, I mean, he's now kind of hanging in tail end at that pack. That you've got that whole pack running within about a second and a half of each other, and that's a real race on the track right now. I think Douthwaite and Wortman are just going to stay put where they are, but they're going to be coming in for fuel soon. I can't imagine there's any way they can make it to the end.
And I've actually been in this situation myself as a racer, running one of the closer towards the end of the Verdane Racing Series. We would run super speedways almost each and every week, and there was one particular race where there was maybe 20 laps, 15 laps or so to go, and everybody seemed like they were kind of dragging the brake a little bit. So I jumped out on the high side. I'm passing cars. I'm on the old team chat channel with Rowdy Wesley Hogue and Kyle Young, my teammates, almost by default, because they were the administrators for the Verdane Racing League at the time. And I said, guys, this is great. I got a fast car. I'm heading up towards the front. And Wes comes back on the radio and says, hey, bud, we're 6 laps short on fuel. It's like, oh, that's why everybody's going slow. All right. So that may very well be what's going on with Douthwaite and Wortman to have a 21-second lead now over this group. And you made mention they've lost about 5 seconds here in the past 10 or so laps. And you can see there's a handful of cars that are really hooked up nose to tail. And they should be able to run those leaders down no problem. But there you see it. Going to come down pit road, some of them. So there's the 18. There's Bowen down there as well. Absher's down there. Drew Moffitt in the 52. He's going to come down pit road here as well. So that's going to leave, 9 drivers out there on the lead lap. And Dave Douthwaite, Tim Wortman still up in the front. Still no signs of coming down. Still no signs of slowing down. And there you can see Kenny Capola out front leading the field. But he's the first car, or the last car rather, on the lead lap.
Yeah, at this point, here they come. I was going to say, at this point, you've made your bed. You've got to run it out to the end, and they've hit the end. That pack's going to come down and get some fuel now.
Running on fumes for sure. You can see some of the other drivers just leaving pit road. Jimmy Absher, Drew Moffitt, Kenny Capola is down with these leaders here as well. So he's got a really good opportunity to try and make up just a little bit of ground. And this is going to be interesting to see what this batch of cars does. There's a lot of Hendrick Motorsports up in this. Wade Palmer, Ed Boyles in there. Matt Mackin is in there as well. And a couple of JGR cars as well. Right up in the top 10. So this is going to be interesting. 5 laps to go. Do they have enough fuel? As everybody factoring in a green-white checkered, a potential for multiple green-white checkers here with the fuel. We'll let you know in 5 or 6 laps because I have no idea.
And that's the big gamble right there. I mean, maybe you've been able to make enough. And if these guys are running their own open setups, you can bet your bottom dollar they've been testing fuel mileage, they've been testing fuel strategy, so they know exactly what they've got under the hood. They know exactly what they've got in the rear. They know what they're going to be able to manage. But boy, I mean, you've got, at this point, it's going to be tight. I mean, how much fuel are you able to save while still running that strong? I mean, at some point, these guys have been running pretty aggressively in that pack. They may be tight. They may be tight on fuel here.
But if they're not, one thing to keep in mind, you take a look at the windshield of the 24 car of Wade Palmer, the 5th, doesn't have that yellow banner up on the top of the car. he has the potential to win that Bounty Hunter Challenge. $115 in the pocket if he's able to win this race at Talladega. And he's got 3 laps to do it as they cross the stripe. Working the backstretch right now, trying to put the 1 car of Keith Hume Sr. down a lap. But you can see Ziemer there in the background trying to close on up. Multiple laps down in the 32 car, trying to hold on to it. And it looks like we've got 11 cars on the lead lap here at this point, including that number 1 car of Keith Hume Sr., who's right up in front of the leaders. But Hendrick Motorsports 1, 2, and 4 right now, a little bit further on back in the field. But this is going to get interesting for sure.
Yeah, look at the 32 and the 33 up on the high line there. These Chevys are still trying to save every drop they can. And at this, interesting, Wortman has actually gotten past Douthwaite, and they are closing. They are closing rapidly. It's a question of what will happen in the next 3 laps, but they are definitely shaving away at that advantage there.
And you can see those 2 drivers that we knew were going, giving it all in the 33 and the 32. They are hooked up, and they just passed the leaders like they were standing still. So it's going to come down to fuel mileage with this top group. You can see a couple of other guys that came down pit road. They've got fuel for days. They're going to try and make a little magic happen, and really kind of disorganized up here in the front. You can see Hume Sr. is going to come down. The 24 car almost came down pit road, but decided against it. We can see Josh Nolan's going to come down from the 3rd position. Keith Hume Sr. spins. He goes down to the inside safety barrier. Potentially could bring out a caution if he's outside of the racing group with 2 laps to go. Looks like we are, in fact, going to stay green, and this is definitely going to come down to fuel mileage here at this point. You can see Wade Palmer, the 5th, in that 24 car, currently leading the race down on the bottom side. A couple of lap cars trying to get their laps back. There you can see Ellert in the 23 car trying to move up around these leaders, and the 24 car holding on to the lead. His teammate right in behind him, Ed Boyles Jr., in a second. Tim Wortman, Dave Douthwaite, they are hooked up with Kenny Coppola, and they're going to try and run these leaders down. This is going to be a drag race for the final lap of this race here at Talladega.
Yeah, that Brant Neon is coming in a hurry. That's going right to front, and here we go. That's a shame. I mean, you if you're going to play that fuel strategy, you want that to play out to a win, and for them to play that, it's almost like they might as well have pitted there, or might as well try to stay in it and come into the pits. But well, we'll see what happens with Douthwaite and Wortman. Hopefully, they got enough fuel in on their stops.
Yeah, final lap, white flag, white rag, and you see Kenny Coppola still barely on the lead lap, trying to hold on for 1 more lap, at least get a lead lap finish. Going to be running in the 12th position here right now if everybody else stays out on track. But Dave Douthwaite, Tim Wortman Jr. going to be the ones that made the call here. And at this point, checkered flag is already in the air. A couple of drivers, looks like Wade Palmer missed the pit stop just a little bit, came down to try and top off, needed just a little bit to get to the checkered flag. But not this guy. Yeah, tough break, but there we go. The 34 car going to come down the front straightaway. All he's got to do is hang on for another couple of 100 yards. Dave Douthwaite going to come home with the victory here at Talladega Super Speedway. Tim Wortman Jr. finishes 2nd. Ed Boyles Jr. 3rd. Wayne Bowen in 4th. And Jimmy Absher, last season's champion, rounding out the top 5. Little fuel mileage.
I wouldn't call anybody just yet, because keep in mind, those guys are almost a full lap behind. We could see some cars run out of fuel.
Boyle's out of fuel. He's going to lose a bunch of positions. He's barely going to make it to the line here. So that's going to slide Wayne Bowen up into the 3rd. Jimmy Absher up into 4th. They cross the stripe. We can call that. Ed Boyles Jr. still hasn't made it to the start-finish line. Going to lose another position to his teammate, Matt Mackin, in the 9 car. And there you can see it's almost like that scene in Talladega Nights where he's sprinting to the start-finish line. Finally crosses the stripe there in the 7th position. Rough night.
Boyle's going to knob a top 10 after all this, too.
Yeah, 100%. How about that in the 8th car? Tonight's sponsor for the race, and everybody else crossing the stripe. Now I think we can call it official.
We can. That's the tough part about fuel mileage racing.
And there
but it looked like Douthwaite got just enough in for that victory lane burnout there.
100%. And you can see Tim Wortman Jr. He may very well be out of gas down there on the apron, just kind of watching out the passenger side windshield. But we'll take a look at the unofficial results here for the Talladega race. And there you can see it on your screen. Dave Douthwaite coming home with the victory. Racing for birds aren't real. And right in behind him, Tim Wortman Jr., the 00, Wayne Bowen, and the 11, his teammate, Jimmy Absher, Drew Moffitt, rounding out the top 5. AC Matt Mack and Ed Boyles Jr. finishing 6th and 7th. Joshua Nolan, Guy Bonifield, Kenny Coppola with a top 10. holding on to that final car position on the lead lap, and the rest of the drivers in this field throughout. We're going to try and talk to these top 3 drivers here before we get on the old dusty trail here, and we're going to try and start with tonight's winner, Dave Douthwaite, in the number 34 car. Strong all night long, led a bunch of laps, crazy good strategy, and it ended up working out in the end here. Parking that thing on the front straight grass. Have you got enough gas to get back to victory lane here, Dave?
Yeah, I got just enough for a green-white checker.
Excellent. Great race here. Awesome strategy. You worked very, very well with the 00 here, and a great race, man. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, it was. We had some good teammates. Tim worked really well with me at the end. Kenny, obviously, being a lap car, he had some misfortune early on, but he was able to help his team out here towards the end. I'm really happy to be locked into the championship 4. That's amazing. I didn't make it there last year. I ended up finishing 5th, like 2 points out, so a little bit of an improvement over last year here. But just hats off to our team. We worked good. A couple people had some misfortune today, but practice pit strategy. We practiced pitting together. And that paid off. You saw me and Tim and Kenny, we were pitting pretty much in tandem for the last 2 or 3 pit stops, and then we worked on that all week.
100%. You made mention you're locked into the round of 4, the championship battle at Homestead Miami Speedway here live on Verdane TV in the next couple of weeks. What does that do for you for the next couple of races? Are you going to be able to kind of practice a little bit, or are you going to come out and try and Capola the round? Are you going to try and sweep all 3 races?
I am going to do my best to do the sweep, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably not going to happen. Nashville's not my best track. This is probably the best track I had the opportunity at. So I'm going to probably just focus my efforts on seeing what I can do at Homestead.
100%, but a dominating performance here tonight at Talladega. I want to give you an opportunity. Beautiful race car, that number 34 Mustang. Give us a list of sponsors, everybody that makes it happen for that virtual 34 team.
Hey, shout out to my endurance team, Secret Simulations, who's also the sponsor for this race. So it works out well, Team Secret Sim. Endurance race, Daytona 24, coming up here on the day on January 21st. So check us out on Secret Simulations on Facebook. Catch us being tired at 2 o'clock in the morning, running around Daytona. And so shout out to them, all the admins, and then the Valhalla Project. Shout out to all they do for veterans and their awareness to veteran suicide.
100%. Very cool program to be hooked up with in the sim racing world and the real racing world as well. But a dominating performance. Congratulations. Locked into the round of 4 here at Homestead in the next couple of weeks. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Going to slide it on down a little bit further on down pit road here. Jeff, you've caught up with our second place finisher, the number 00 of Tim Wortman Jr.
I have, and Tim, that pretty impressive run there. It looked like you and David Douthwaite were hooked up that whole time there. What was going through your mind on those closing laps there? It seemed like you were shaving a lot of time off those leaders while they were trying to save some fuel.
Yeah, I knew that I needed to get Dave on pit road, and I made a very aggressive move coming off pit road, and I spun my tires and had to lift just a little bit to not take him out, and he was nice enough to give me the position. But boy, did he make a move on me coming to the white flag there off 3 and 4. I was pushing Kenny down the backstretch, and I didn't have a good view of the lap car we were coming up on. And, man, I just got out of it just enough, and Dave put the move on me, and I could not get to them after that. So props to Dave on his first league win. That was well earned. That was a heck of a move.
Now, of course, this is the start of the next round of the championship battle, and you're coming out alive from Talladega with a second-place finish. How does it feel to be a little bit better positioned going into the next couple races?
I needed to have a really good finish, but with Dave winning, that's going to put a little bit extra stress on me because I don't have any bonus points for winning. So I'm going to have to run really good the next 2 races.
And of course, there's a lot of names on that Chevrolet of yours. Who do you have to thank for getting here to the track tonight?
I got to thank the guys at Hill Products, Amazon storefront. Know that whenever you buy online from a store on Amazon that's not purchased by Amazon, that you're supporting the main street of e-commerce. Millions of small businesses have developed because of Amazon, and Tactical Arbitrage, which is a great software to help me find stuff to sell on there, as well as Scam Power. I want to throw a big thanks out to Secret Simulations, Josh, for making this broadcast possible. And thanks to you guys. Put on a heck of a show.
Absolutely. Congrats on a great run. And Paul, it looks like you caught up with our third place finisher.
Yeah, the cream always rising to the top here in the Lugz Cup Series. All top 3 drivers, all podium finishers in this championship race in this round of 8. And Wayne Bowen, no stranger to running up towards the front. Solid run here. Ended up in the third place, but it was kind of an up and down night. Talk to us about it.
Oh man, just pit road just kicked my butt tonight. I just made too many mistakes. Spun trying to get off a pit road when I was right there with Dave and Tim, right where I wanted to be. And once we lost them and got back a little bit, then I overshot my pits and had to back up. But was lucky to be able to hook up with some teammates, and we run Kenny down in another car and help get us up through there. And just be honest with you, them guys forcing it, trying to stretch it to the end just really helped us out. I think we picked up 4 or 5 spots in the last lap or 2 there. So, it's just I'm just kicking my butt. I felt like I had the car that could have won the race again. I give Kenny a late Christmas present at Atlanta last week when I had a little trouble. Felt like I had the car to run away with there, and just like I had a brain fart, I guess. But we're going all these mistakes are going to quit here in a minute. We're going to click off some wins, and we coming up on some tracks that I really like. Nashville Fairgrounds coming up next is my favorite track. And like Vegas and Homestead, and I like my chances. I'm loving this throwback DW paint scheme. I think I've run no worse than 5th with it.
Hey, and that's one of the things you're really going to have to hold on to. You might have to throw a little bit more paint on that thing, because it seems like a top 5's not really going to get it done. The competition really getting hot with 3 races left to go here in the season. And you made mention you got a couple of fast tracks, a couple of good tracks for the 11 team coming up here for you. What's the strategy heading into it? Do you just try and go out and win races and try and get yourself locked in, or are you going to try and point your way into this thing?
I hit every race, no matter what it is, with the same approach to it. Is get out there and try to get up in the front, and try to be patient, not make mistakes, and just put yourself down at the end of the race with a chance to win it. And a couple mental mistakes on my part here to last race or 2's probably cost me a win. So I'm gonna clean the mistakes up these next 3 races. Dave raced his way in, so we got 3 spots left. I'm sitting in a good spot in the points, so if I can click off a couple top 5s here, we're going to be in a good position, I think, to make the Final 4 there at Homestead. But I definitely want to try and win one and lock myself in and, just kind of take that weight off my shoulders. But we're going to do it. We're going to be up front. We're going to be the car to beat, and them boys better get their game on.
Yeah, right now the 11 car still sitting in 4th in points with Dave Dothwaite coming home with a victory. Ed Boyle's right behind him. Kenny Coppola 2 points in behind him. And Wayne Bowen sitting 4th in points right now with 2 races to go before that final cut. And you made mention a couple of good tracks, so we might see that 11 car in victory lane here at Nashville or Las Vegas. But Wayne, we want to give you the opportunity here. You made mention you got the DW throwback paint scheme. Who's on there for Lugz? Who makes it happen for the virtual 11 team?
Be honest with you, just team effort with starting with Jimmy Apsher. Me and Jimmy, every week we put in a lot of time working on qualifying and race setups and logging laps and just learning the tracks, and where we need to be fast. And so, every week I tell you same thing. Thanks to Jimmy, man, we put in a lot of work to get these cars fast and get them up front. More than anything, appreciate y'all coming on board and, showing these races, commentating, bringing us in here, talking to us afterwards. Really appreciate it a lot.
100%. We appreciate you guys putting on one hell of a show here for us and the fans out there in the virtual racing world. But a solid finish here tonight. Still very much in that championship hunt. Going to have to win us a couple of races here over the next 3 weeks for sure.
Yeah, but we the car to beat. Tell you that up front right now, and you're going to see it. If they're going to win, they're going to have to beat me. That's just all there is to it. So it's time, it's money time to go to the front and make it happen. And like I say, we're going to cut these mistakes out, and we're going to be out front. And so they just better get their game on.
It's money time, brother. I like it. Confidence oozing out of the 11 car. We are ready to rock and roll over the next couple of weeks. Congratulations, Wayne. Phenomenal run, P3 here at Talladega.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And that's going to wrap up the racing action here for you. 2 races in the books here for you, Jeff. How you feeling, man?
Not bad, not bad at all. It's all about building a rhythm, like anything else. I mean, it took me 2 years to get the rhythm of an iRacing ride and two broadcasts. Hopefully, I'll be able to guest in with you on a few more of these as we go forward.
Absolutely, brother. Doors always open. And we made mention of the Lugz Cup Series. 3 races left in the season. Nashville next week. The week after that, going to be Las Vegas, and then the championship race at the track down there in Florida that I can't think of. The Homestead Championship night at Homestead coming up here in 3 weeks' time on January 26th. We're going to have 4 drivers fighting for that championship. And oh, by the way, speaking of Las Vegas, Neps bets tomorrow night for the New England, Pennsylvania iRacing Shift Marketing and Design Grand National Series. And Jeff, you're going to be running that race. What do you got for him?
Oh, the usual, wing and a prayer. I'm not even going to pretend I'm one of the front runners in the series. There's a lot of guys who actually drive race cars. I write about them. I take pictures of them. But we're out there. The intermediates seem to be the best opportunity for me to try to steal a decent finish. We've got hopefully a nice clean race tomorrow night, maybe a little bit of green flag action, let pit strategy play into it, and we'll see what happens.
100%. The next time we're on the air is going to be this Sunday here for the Tim's Corner Motorsports second annual Jim Hallahan 333. 333 miles at Bristol Motor Speedway. We've got over 50 drivers that are signed up for that event. That is going to be an absolute blast. A little doubleheader action next Wednesday night, the 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Tim's Corner Motorsports brings us Tim's Corner Motorsports Live, episode number 46. We'll get that guest lineup as quickly as we can. And then right back here with the Lugz Cup Series for Nashville, getting ready to see if we can find ourselves maybe another winner to lock themselves into the championship round. Neps next Thursday, and then Neps next Saturday. Say that 6 times fast. For the NEP Shift Marketing and Design Grand National Series. Gray, GNG, you guys have such long names over there.
Tell me about it. I got to type them half the time. But, the 250, the 250 is a big deal. We got Grand National Greg Peters, John Peters' dad, who's a supporter of the series, had a lot of fun watching. Obviously John doesn't live in Maine at this time, and so it gave dad and mom a chance to watch their son stay involved in racing during the pandemic. And Greg was a great follower of ours, and unfortunately lost his battle with cancer this past summer. And so, we've done a lot. John's been doing a lot. John's family's been doing a lot. Actually, shameless plug. This weekend is the Northeast Motorsports Expo up in Augusta, Maine. If anybody wants to come out, I know Evan Bollier, Dan Winter, Corey Casagrande, a bunch of the NEP guys will actually be up there. But as will John, and John's program, GNG's Gift, a scholarship program in honor of his father's memory. They'll be actually presenting at 7:00 on Saturday evening. They'll be unveiling their first scholarship winner. So that's really a big deal for John and his family. It's a big part of why Grand National Greg Peters' name is on the Oxford 250. It's a special race for him. It's a special race for family. It's a special race for the Maine guys. They all grew up. Greg wasn't just a dad to John. He was a mentor to Evan Bollier, to Wyatt Alexander, all of those guys. So Greg Peters has a big part for NEP. And, it's a racing's family sport. Many of us, many of those who are involved in the sport have been involved with their dad one way or the other. You were talking about your dad earlier. It's a big deal. And Greg Peters is a big deal. And we're glad to honor him next week.
Yeah, 100%, and we could not support the idea more here of Dane TV with the situation that Greg Peters was in. You can go on Facebook, you can go on YouTube, you can go on any social media outlet, search for the hashtag #RacingForGNG, and you'll just the amount of stories, the amount of lives that this man touched inside racing, outside racing is absolutely phenomenal. And we're no different here at Vidane TV. I remember getting a message one day on the Vidane TV Facebook page. Says, hey, from Greg Peters, says, hey, what you guys do here with the sim racing stuff is really cool. Unfortunately, towards the end, Greg wasn't able to get to the racetrack and watch his son, John race, but he was able to sit down in front of the TV and watch the reigning, defending two-time NEP champ John Peters win a bunch of races here on Vidane TV in the sim racing world, and that really meant a lot to me, founding Vidane TV and being able to entertain the masses. So to have G&G's Oxford 250 coming up here next Saturday, that's a big deal. That is a huge deal, and we're going to put on one heck of a show for everybody out there watching, everybody involved, and we might even have ourselves a little viewing party after the fact to get all the NEP guys in there and watch a little bit of racing, maybe do some driver commentary as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. We tried the driver commentary thing last night with the qualifier. Jeff, you had fun with that, I think. You had enough fun, you came back tonight, so that's good news, right?
Absolutely, it's a blast. We all. If there's anything we love as much as racing, it's being able to talk about racing. And a lot of us, we're in January. Those of us who aren't into winter sports, those of us who don't have a snowmobile or a set of skis, racing's what we got, and everybody's just waiting until the first chance we get to go to Lee, to Stafford, to Thompson, to Loudon, wherever it might be. So this is our opportunity to keep the rust off a little bit, enjoy some racing with our buddies, and hopefully we get to do so in Victory Lane, because that's what makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely, 100%. But be sure to get us on all the social media outlets. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Over almost 600 live shows on demand over on the Vidane TV YouTube page. We're over on Facebook as well, where you can get hooked up with all of the supporters of the leagues and all the different action as well here. And the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to kind of figure out exactly what's going on for the 2022 sim racing season. Still trying to figure out what's going on with our schedule. We got some cool stuff penciled on in, but we are apparently going to be looking for some leagues to put you out there, to let you let the fans take a look at some of the racing action that you're able to bring to the table. But that's tomorrow's news. Tonight's news, we're done for the night. We're going to wrap everything up, probably have a couple of cold beers. Otherwise, we're going to sit here and talk to you guys about racing for another couple of hours. I can already feel it. But for myself, Showtime, Paul Strickland Jr., for my good buddy, Jeff Brown, making his second night in a row here up in the booth with Vidane TV, doing a phenomenal job, knocking it out of the park. And for everybody here with the Lugz Racing League and Secret Simulations jumping on board as the presenting sponsor for the Alabama 225 at Talladega, won by Dave Douthwaite, who has locked himself into the championship round of 4 at Homestead, coming up here on January 26th in just 3 weeks' time, here live on Vidane TV. But the next time we catch you guys, we'll be doing it live, and we're going to be doing it right here on Vidane TV.